The Russian Federation's 83rd Separate Airborne Assault Brigade was the target of a targeted attack by the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The attack resulted in the destruction of ammunition-filled dugouts that caught fire. On the evening of August 26th, footage of the attack's aftermath was released by the Russian Army-affiliated Z channel ZAVDV. The lone survivor was a Russian invader who captured the event on camera. Fires and extensive damage are seen in the video. All that remains of our camp is this. The ammunition is blowing up. It was totally destroyed by fire. Totally. People lost their lives. There is no way to reach our dugout. We have dugouts there where it is burning, but there is no way to get there. They're blowing up the grenades. I made an unsuccessful attempt to extinguish it. Off camera, the Russian soldier stated, "This is how it all looks." The precise location and time of the strike were not specified by the source. Located in Ussurisk, the 83rd Brigade has been actively participating in the full-scale conflict against Ukraine since its inception. Even in the initial months of the invasion, the unit sustained heavy casualties. Consequently, Lieutenant Colonel Vitaly Slyabtsov, the brigade's deputy commander, was liquidated at the end of March 2022. A few days later, on March 30th, the Armed Forces of Ukraine's General Staff announced that almost 200 fallen personnel were given a farewell ceremony at the unit's permanent deployment location. Lieutenant Colonel Oleg Tashmatov, another deputy commander who was killed during military operations in Ukraine, was buried in Ryazan in October of the same year. The 83rd Brigade is still suffering significant frontline casualties over 4 years later. Recall that a high-profile scandal involving Russian forces was disclosed by Ukraine's main Directorate of Intelligence. Officers in the 83rd Airborne Assault Brigade staged severe injuries in order to be compensated and awarded. A total of more than 200 million rubles were taken. The HUR brought this to our attention. The Russian army is embroiled in a fresh corruption controversy. The GUR of Ukraine claims that the 83rd Separate Guards Airborne Assault Brigade was the site of a massive fraud scheme. In order to set up perks and payments for themselves, servicemen purposefully manufactured injuries. Documents indicate that over 30 members of this unit reportedly suffered frontline injuries and received medical care at hospitals. Instead of being deployed to the front lines, they continued to serve and receive pay, benefits, and allowances. Russian soldiers are swiftly burning through their men as they advance toward Lyman, striking Ukrainians from all sides. According to the media outlet Euromaidan Press, the Ukrainian 3rd Army Corps is retaliating forcefully while maintaining an active defensive, denying the Russians new territory and using their most vulnerable positions to secure new, substantial territorial gains of their own. Although Ukrainian fighters from the 63rd and 60th Mechanized Brigades are aggressively defending, it is observed that Russian forces are still advancing on Torske from all directions. By focusing on Russians while they are deployed to the front line, they are preventing the enemy from establishing themselves or consolidating inside the settlement. By keeping a low profile and scuttling past Ukrainian defenses at night, Russian troops have penetrated deeper through the natural cover of the neighboring Serebryansky forest to advance into Torske. But the Russians were unable to remain hidden all day. According to Euromaidan Press, the infiltrators attempted to hide in the forest but were pursued by the armored truck and killed with yet another round of lethal gunfire. While attempting to deploy assault parties to attack Torske from the north, Ukrainian FPV drone operators destroyed 2 Russian BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicles near Terny in another encounter involving infrequently encountered armored vehicles. After striking mines, both vehicles were rendered immobile, and the remaining crew members and dismounted soldiers were later killed. Any momentum the Russians wanted to establish in that direction was blocked by the loss of both BMPs and their crews. It demonstrates how well Ukrainian drone warfare can destroy even highly armored targets before they have a chance to affect the conflict. Although Torske has some tactical value, the Ukrainian command has stated that they will not, under any circumstances, sacrifice their men to protect it, prioritizing troop lives and preserving brigade's fighting capability over sticking to a single defense line. A mobile and active defense posture is crucial. The scenario is quite different across the Zherbets River along the Russian bridgehead. According to Euromaidan Press, Russian soldiers have to move 15 kilometers on foot at a crawling pace to avoid immediate detection by Ukrainian drones, making any reinforcement attempts costly, slow, and any rapid response impossible. The Russians are overextended, and their most vulnerable positions are continuously under heavy Ukrainian fire, without Russian artillery being able to respond without exposing itself on the bank. As a result, Ukrainians were able to launch a counteroffensive and take advantage of the enemy's vulnerabilities. Recently, fighters from several brigades in the 3rd Army Corps retook Rydkadub, hitting the exact spot where Russian forces were most vulnerable. The Russian presence in Rydkadub has now been completely eliminated. The enemy offensive here must begin from scratch due to the logistical challenges faced by Russian forces who must ferry infantry, artillery, and drones across the river while evading ongoing Ukrainian monitoring. In the Lyman area, Ukrainian forces are resolving their problems by regaining land whenever possible, in addition to engaging in active defense and effectively absorbing Russian strikes. The globe was rocked by Russian President Vladimir Putin's announcement that we are launching a special military operation in Ukraine early on February 24, 2022. Explosions could be heard all around Ukraine within minutes. Odessa, Mariupol, Kharkiv, Kiev, etc. Russia wanted to remove the government and take control of the capital, Kiev, as soon as possible. But the unexpected pushback from the Ukrainian army and people came as a surprise. The West took immediate action. Ukraine started receiving billions of euros in economic and military assistance from the US and the EU. Modern tanks, Patriot air defenses, and HIMARS rocket systems were delivered to Ukraine. Drones, satellite photography, and intelligence assistance helped the Ukrainian army become more powerful every day. However, this was insufficient to deter Russia. Moscow expanded its influence in key areas like Crimea, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and the Donbass. The fall of Mariupol, in particular, is remembered as one of the deadliest periods of the conflict. The world did not accept Russia's declaration that it had annexed some of these areas. Millions of lives were lost in the conflict, in addition to the front lines. Over 8 million Ukrainians were forced to flee their country. Targeting energy infrastructure resulted in millions of people going without power during the winter. A worldwide food crisis resulted from the frequent disruptions of grain shipments across the Black Sea. They set up diplomatic tables, spoke about deals, tried to implement ceasefires, etc. However, no approach has succeeded in establishing enduring peace, because NATO's eastward expansion is viewed as an existential threat by Moscow. In contrast, Kiev makes it apparent that it will never give up its independence and territorial integrity. The situation on the front lines is considerably more dire now that the war is in its 3rd year. Ukraine is awaiting Western F-16 fighter fighters. In the meantime, Russia is speeding up military production and creating a new mobilization strategy. The combat will get more intense because neither side is giving up. The international community is worried because this conflict has the potential to drastically change not just Russia or Ukraine, but also the security framework in Europe, and even the balance of power in the world. Everyone's primary concern right now is when this war will finish. Will the world still be the same when it does? Or will it be in a totally different order when we wake up?